Good morning, 7 East. That's right, everybody. It is Monday, March 23rd, our first Monday of our distance learning program. I'm excited for the first full week of Free LEPRE Radio, as you should be as well. Now, I remember on Friday I said that episode would be much shorter, and it turns out it wasn't. I really underestimated my ability or habit of talking way longer than I should. So I promise this episode will be shorter today. I've only got 3 things to get through. I hope you all had a good weekend. If you're wondering what I did, you're about to find out, because looking at our agenda for today, or our objectives rather, only got 3 things. So audience Q&A number 2, I've only got 3 questions of yours to answer, answering them live, kind of, but not really. 2, your assignment that is due Wednesday is the Article 4 to 7 scavenger hunt assignment. I'm going to go through it in this screencast. So if you are someone who is going to probably have a little difficulty finding the stuff in the scavenger hunt, you can do it with me, essentially, by watching this screencast. And we'll go over the answers and where to find things. And lastly, just a little fun on this Monday. Our third and final item on our objectives is weird news that will make you laugh and or whatever, possibly horrify you or make you cry, tears of joy, tears of sorrow, I don't know. But I'm hoping the reactions are 51% positive, at least. But we'll find out. So, objective number 1, audience Q&A. Let's see, what was that first question? Alright. So, first question, what did you do over the weekend? Well, needless to say, actually I wasn't stuck indoors. I was on Sunday. But Saturday I was actually helping my brother move into his new apartment. Probably not the best circumstance during a pandemic, but what can you do? You can't really catch anything from a sofa, or can you? Who knows? But the main thing that I thought was noteworthy was that I ordered or ate pizza someone else ordered 3 times. Once on Friday, twice on Saturday. Can you believe that? Desperate times call for desperate measures. I just remember on Saturday afternoon being on a street corner in Yonkers with leather gloves and a mask on and a black raincoat with a $10 bill, waving it around in my hand, waiting for the pizza guy to come. If you asked me if a month ago I could have foreseen myself in that situation, the answer would have been maybe, but probably no. So yeah, that was my weekend. Played some Doom Eternal. Not as fun as I expected, but yeah, that was my weekend. Maybe some of you did something more exciting, but who knows. Second question. Will I be hosting Google Meets? Well, I did make some surprise appearances in 2 Google Meets on Friday, but the answer to this question is yes. I just need to work out the times and days. Ideally, I like to do 1 or more at the beginning or end of the week, so it can be helpful in answering questions for the upcoming week or for work that has already been done for the week. I was hoping maybe like a Monday, Friday sort of thing, or a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We'll see. I'll work it out with the other teachers, and we'll try to, I guess, maybe space out the days so everything doesn't happen on one day. But yes, and please keep looking at Classroom for a link that you're going to see when I eventually host one of those meets. Third and final question. Okay, so we actually have a content-related question. Great. Why are there so few justices, and why do they serve for life? So this is referencing the Supreme Court lesson from last Thursday. And the answer to this, many of you may have been wondering this, but the answer is kind of simple, but the thinking behind it is a bit more complicated. So there are so few justices because the role of the Supreme Court justice originally, and it's still today, but originally especially, it was supposed to be the role of an unbiased referee. The judge was supposed to basically call balls and strikes, not have an ideology or opinions. They just say, is something constitutional or not? They interpret the law, very basic. And the founders thought that you don't really need a lot of referees. Like in a football game, there aren't as many referees as there are players on the field. You don't need that many. And the founders thought the same way about government. The judicial branch, they thought, didn't need a lot of referees. There is actually nothing that says it must be 9 justices in the Supreme Court. It's been less, it's been more. That number can change, but it's always been a small group compared to, for example, Congress, which is 100 senators and representatives depending on population in the several hundreds. And they thought also that giving someone a lifetime term would make them more unbiased and like more honest and objective. because from their point of view, if you are depending on re-election, you might change your views, or you might do something that's kind of corrupt to get re-elected. So their thinking was, okay, let's appoint the justices for life, assuming they are on good behavior and not taking bribes and breaking the law, and we can rely on them to be unbiased because they don't owe anybody anything. They don't have to be re-elected. They don't feel pressure to change their views or what they do based on an upcoming election. So that was the thinking behind serving for life. Although in recent years, people think that that should be changed as well and maybe do like a 10-year term or something. I know it's a good debate to have, but that question is probably not going to be answered for a very long time. Those are our 3 questions for today. Now let's take a look. So our second objective on this Monday is Articles 4 to 7, Scavenger Hunt assignment. Now, Articles 4 to 7, why am I assigning a scavenger hunt for all these articles? I had a separate one for 1 and 2. Why 1 for all these? Well, the short answer to that is because these articles are short. Articles 4 to 7, the rest of the Constitution are very short compared to Article 1 especially, which is the longest. So what I'm about to do now is I'm going to open up both a blank copy of the assignment that you're going to be working on and the link I posted with it, which is a link to a copy of the U.S. Constitution. If you want to follow along, I would suggest you click that link because it's going to make it a lot easier for you to find what I'm looking at. So let me X out of the full screen mode. And this is the scavenger hunt, 2-sided. So you got 6 on one page, 9 on the back. And let's get right into it. So I'm going to go to my link right here. And since we start in Article 4, I'm going to scroll down. So Article 2, Article 3, Article 4. Okay, so let's see. What's the first thing that I am actually looking for here? A, the 3 things that the states must share with each other under the full faith and credit clause. In Article 4, Section 1. Okay, let's take a look. Article 4, Section 1. So let's read this. Full faith and credit shall be given in each state to the public acts, records, and judicial proceedings of every other state. And the Congress may, by general laws, prescribe the manner in which such acts, recordings, and proceedings shall be proved, and the effect thereof. So the thing on the scavenger hunt is asking for the 3 things, and it says it right here. Public acts, records, and judicial proceedings of every other state. So to make this simple, let me just copy that. I'm going to put that because that is the answer. So an example of this, to make it simple, a public act or record might be like a marriage license. If you get married in Connecticut, it's supposed to be honored in New York and every other state. You don't got to get married 50 times in 50 states. They're supposed to kind of accept the records of each state on things like that and other things as well. Now let's look at B. The 2 things people in a state are entitled to. That means they are owed this thing. They have a right to it. Under Article 4, Section 2. I'll go back to Article 4. And there we go. Right here. Clause 1 of Section 2. The citizens of each state shall be entitled to all the privileges and immunities of citizens of the several states. Right here, the 2 things, privileges and immunities. Now, what does that mean? Well, in a country that is one national government made up of many states, you might wonder, well, can someone discriminate based on which state you come from? This section and this clause says no. That means you have the same privileges and immunities as a resident of New York as anyone in California, Nebraska, any other state. So for example, if a state passed a law saying it is illegal for anyone from the state of New Jersey to work in our state, that's unconstitutional. That's violating this section and clause. If you're a member or a citizen of the United States, your rights, privileges, and immunities, they are the same no matter what state you're in. You cannot be denied access to one state. So you can freely travel from one state to another. You can work in one state, live in another. It's trying to make sure that the playing field is level, that no one state has rules that apply to it that don't apply to another state. Of course, states have different laws, but if you're in that state, no matter where your home is, you still got to obey those laws of that state. So it's kind of leveling the playing field, making things equal between states. C. If someone who commits a crime in one state runs away to another state and gets caught, the state that catches them must what? And here it's Article 4, Section 2, Clause 2. And here it is. A person charged in any state with treason, felony, or other crime, who shall flee from justice, and be found in another state, shall on demand of the executive authority of that state from which he fled, be delivered up to be removed to the state having jurisdiction of the crime. Now this is something you see a lot in crime TV shows, and I'm going to simplify this, so I'm going to type for this one. That last part is the key part. Be delivered up to be removed to the state having jurisdiction of the crime. That means that if you commit a crime in New York and you run away to New Jersey, you get sent back to New York to face trial. So for C, if someone who commits a crime in one state and runs away to another state and gets caught, the state that catches them must return them to the state where they committed the crime. All right, A, B, and C done. Let's go to D. Article, section, and clause that is about catching and returning runaway slaves without mentioning slaves or slavery. So remember, this is a recurring theme. Slaves and slavery are kind of avoided entirely, at least in terms of their specific names in the Constitution, but the ideas are there. So we're still in Article 4. So let's take a look. Article 4. Wouldn't you know it? The next clause. Let's take a look. No person held to service or labor in one state under the laws thereof, escaping to another, shall in consequence of any law or regulation therein be discharged from such service or labor, but shall be delivered up on a claim of the party to whom such service or labor may be due. This is a fancy way of saying if a slave in one state runs away to another state, they get to be returned. And that is Article 4, Section 2, Clause 3. Let's type that. Article 4, Section 2, Clause 3. E, the article and section that permits the addition of new states to the country. There we go. Next section. New states may be admitted by the Congress into this union, yada, yada, yada. So it is Section 3. Article 4. Article 4, Section 3. And then we have, for F, the two ways that states are typically not allowed to be added to the country. And that's in the same exact clause. It says, but no new state shall be formed or erected within the jurisdiction of any other state. That means you cannot carve a state out of an existing one. So you cannot just split California in two and do North Carolina and South California. And that's one way. And the second way is, nor any state be formed by the junction of two or more states or parts of states. Of course, the exception here is unless the state legislatures and Congress both agree. So you can't split a state into two and add a new state that way. And you can't take two states that already exist and combine them to one without their consent. So you cannot take North Dakota and South Dakota and combine them into just Dakota. Can't do it unless they agree. So those are the two ways that states are not allowed to be added. You can't cut a state out of an existing state, and you can't combine two states into one. This is actually relevant for us because there was a proposal not too long ago to actually split New York, and it would have to be accepted in a state constitutional convention, which was not taking place, although there was a possibility it would have recently. But there were people who wanted to separate New York into two states. New York, which would be kind of the lower county, Westchester, New York City, Long Island, and I think maybe another county or two. And that would be New York. And the rest of the entire state would be New Amsterdam. That was a proposal that people were, at least some people were trying to support. So, of course, that wouldn't have happened unless the state agreed to it. That is why you had to have a state constitutional convention, and the Congress would have to agree to it as well. But these are the two ways states are typically not allowed to be added to the country. Now let's take a look now. We're already on the back. So if you finish the front with me, just take a look at what we have on screen. If you're missing anything, you can add it. But now we're going to move on to the back. So G, the guarantee given to every state according to Article 4, Section 4. All right, Article 4, we're still in Section 4, right here. The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government, and shall protect each of them against invasion, and on application of the legislature or of the executive, when this legislature cannot be convened, against domestic violence. Okay. So the question was, the guarantee, a republican form of government. That is the answer. Now, that does not have anything to do with the political party, the Republican Party. Republican in this case just means a government where you elect representatives. Remember, there was the difference between direct democracy and a republic. In this case, what is being guaranteed here is that you can't have a state added to the country that happens to have a king. So imagine if when Florida was added as a state to the United States, that they didn't have a governor with elections and a legislature. They had the king of Florida being a state added to the country. That is not allowed. Every state that is added to the country must have a democratic, specifically a republic form of government, where you elect representatives. So that is a guarantee that every state must have. To get into this club called the United States, you got to make sure your new state has a republican form of government. H, the number of ways amendments can be added to the Constitution. So we're moving on to Article 5. So going through this, they actually label the different ways that you can add amendments to the Constitution. And if you just go through this paragraph, it's actually just 2 ways. It's very simple. So I'm going to add that answer. 2 ways. And I and J talk about the 2 ways. So the way for Congress to propose amendments to the Constitution. So it says, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, they shall propose amendments to this Constitution or on the application of legislatures of the 2/3 of several states, calling for a convention. Okay, so there we go. One way for Congress. So 2/3 of both houses So you need to have 2/3 vote in both houses, the Senate and the House, to vote in favor of an amendment, to propose it. Now, the way states can propose amendments, that was covered in that section as well. 2/3 of the states. Two-thirds of the state legislatures vote to propose an amendment. And then we have when you actually have to ratify the amendments. So this is just to propose the amendment. Now, in the case of ratifying it, officially adding it to the Constitution, K asks us to find the proportion of states that must vote in favor of an amendment in order for it to be added to the Constitution. All right, let's take a look. Shall call a convention for proposing amendments, which in either case shall be valid to all intents and purposes as part of this Constitution when ratified by the legislatures of 3/4 of the several states or by conventions in 3/4 thereof, as the one or other mode of ratification be proposed by Congress. Okay. 3/4, there we go. So another fraction. Proportion, 3 out of 4 states have to vote to ratify it. 3 out of 4. L, the 2 things that carry over from the Articles of Confederation to the Constitution according to Article 6, Section 1. Article 6, Section 1. All debts contracted and engagements entered into before the adoption of this Constitution shall be as valid against the United States under this Constitution as under the Confederation. The 2 things, debts and engagements. Debts contracted and engagements entered into. I'm just going to type debts and engagements to make it simple. This means that since America borrowed a lot of money in the Revolutionary War, any money America owed under the Articles of Confederation, they still owe that money. That would be the debt that carries over. And engagement. Who do we have an alliance with? With their berets and baguettes, the French. We still have an alliance with France. That engagement carries over into the new Constitution. So it's basically saying in this section that all the stuff that we signed our name to, that still counts. We signed this stuff under the Articles, but now we're carrying it over to the Constitution. M, down to the last three. According to Article 6, Clause 2, the Constitution is considered the supreme. Article 6, Section 2. This Constitution and the laws of the United States shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land. Okay, law of the land. Law of the land. That just means that there's no higher law that you go to. No international law, anything like that. Supreme law of the land is the Constitution. That is where the buck stops. And Article 6, the thing government is not allowed to test for when allowing people to hold office. And the answer is iReady. Can't test iReady. Just kidding. So it says in Article 6, Section 3, the senators and representatives before mentioned and the members of the several state legislatures and all executive and judicial officers both of the United States and of the several states shall be bound by oath or affirmation. So you got to swear an oath to enter office to support this Constitution. But no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. So there's no religious test. You're not allowed to test for religion. Meaning they can't say, oh, you're a member of this religion, you can't run for office. That is not allowed. You cannot test for religion. So you can't say only members of this group can hold office. No religious test in the United States. Lastly, O, the number of states that need to ratify, vote for the Constitution in order for it to be adopted. That is Article 7, the only thing Article 7 is really about. So Article 7, the ratification of the conventions of 9 states shall be sufficient for the establishment of this Constitution between the states, so ratifying the same. So 9, that's the answer. 9 out of 13. 9 states. Only 9 states needed to vote for it, 9 out of the 13. So that is the backside of our scavenger hunt. I'll leave it on the screen for a second. You can pause it if you're missing anything. But that covers the rest of the articles in the Constitution. We did 1, 2, 3, and now 4 to 7 today. 4 to 7 was basically about cleaning things up. So that's what we have here. Now I'm going to go back to our agendas, because we have one last thing to do today. And this is said to be our shortest episode so far, thank God. Objectives for today. Number 3, weird news that will make you laugh and or whatever. So I found some 3 interesting stories over the weekend that you might find interesting, and here they are. Part of our weird news segment. Every Monday I'll give you some weird news. Story number 1 from the Irish Post. All of these stories are true, by the way. I don't need to make stuff up. The world has enough funny stuff and outrageous stuff for me to find as opposed to just make up. So, woman discovers bar of soap she's been using to wash her hands for days is really a block of cheese. Could have fooled me. Let's be honest, it looks like one of those scented, expensive soaps. But it's hard to believe that she didn't really notice. Just imagine that it probably would have spoiled after a while, or she would have noticed her hands smelled like cheese, unless, of course, she bought soap that she thought was cheese-scented. You may never know, but I don't think cheese has any antibacterial properties that would help during this time. But I wonder how this even got on the news to begin with. Nonetheless, still relatively interesting, but definitely weird. I wonder if she ate the cheese after. Imagine if she ate her soap and washed her hands with her cheese. It's not beyond the realm of possibility. But that is story number 1 in our weird news segment. Story number 2. Oh, imagine that. So there was an event in France where a French mayor defends a Smurf rally after outcry over virus. So the Smurfs, if you don't know, it was a big hit cartoon many years ago. I used to watch it as a kid, kind of forced to watch it being stuck at home daytime in the summer. It was daytime TV, Smurfs on Cartoon Network. But apparently there was a Smurf convention, some parade, probably a hotbed of disease at this point in time. But the French mayor apparently said the following: "We must not stop living. It was the chance to say that we are alive." Mayor Patrick Leclerc of Landernau in Western France said to reporters. I don't know if we can call this living, a chance to say that you're alive, painting yourself blue, going to a Smurf parade. Kind of seems like a slow death to me. But congratulations to those who went and are now safe. And our final story. I love this story. This story gives me hope. Story number 3.
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
That's right. Jurassic Park has come to our world. So there was a man on lockdown in Spain. In order to get out of his house, he wore a T-Rex costume and took to the streets. Really amazing stuff. Well, I guess he's not moving in hers. There's only one of him. But he was subsequently arrested. I wish I could say I admire his bravery, but this seems to be more stupidity than bravery. So that's your weird news stories for Monday. Get a new broadcast tomorrow, and I'm going to close this one out. If you have any questions, please fill in the daily check-in form. Email me. I will be on all day in front of my computer because we got nothing else to do. This has been a Monday edition of Free LEPRE Radio. Have a good one.